How is it going, guys? Thank you so much for the comments, the love, the support that you showed me on the last ranking of this. If you guys want to keep seeing more of these videos, be sure to leave a like, be sure to leave a comment, let me know what more you want to see out of me in terms of Guardian Tales. I'm kind of excited for this one. I have a member of my Discord named Powerful Shammy, and this person is all about their dark comp. I've learned so much from Powerful Shammy, so this is a quick shout out to him. Man, I am thankful that they are in our community, and I look forward to teaching you a little bit about what I know about the super OP element that is dark.
Hey, listen!
Just do it!
The first thing I actually want to go over is that my take on dark actually is a bit different than most other people you'll run into. I really think that this element is the strongest in the game, and my tier list for this is going to look a lot different than other people's, and that's just because I think when you actually get your hands on this class, it feels a lot different than the top end of play. And then there's so much flexibility within this class that I think that pieces here are a little undervalued by the community as a whole. And it has some of the strongest 2 stars in the entire game, and that I can say with ease. So the first thing first that we're going to get into is I want to separate this tier list slightly different than others. I want to throw in exclusive versus non-exclusive when it comes to their weapons. That's going to be like another category I go into. Normally it's like your general statistics of attack, defense, passives, what does their chain skill do, what does their utility look like, and then I get into a little bit of how easy is it to make mono element teams with this, how hard is it to make rainbow element teams with this. But I think with dark, a lot of these units are so strong that I actually want to break it down to have another category that we throw in there that is how strong are they with and without their exclusive weapon. And you'll see why in just a second. So when looking at dark, I think that the first unit you should start thinking about when you think of dark is Agma. So you might be asking yourself, why on earth would I be thinking about Agma? I think a lot of people, when they think of the dark class, they instantly jump to Arabella, they instantly jump to Lupina. But Agma is by nature designed to be the souped up version of Craig. And Craig is already better than so many of the 3 stars out there that Agma is just the most ridiculous tank in the game to me, bar Marina, and that's just because Marina is such an oddball with her ability to be straight defensive stats and straight attack stats. But when it comes to a straight up meat shield that can turn around and do reflect damage, Agma is the king of that class. So the first thing that you need to look at with Agma is the defense plus 45%. You stack this bad boy with Marina, and that Marina is going to have a hard time dying unless the other team has Nari, Coco, Grimmery, you name it. Marina, Craig, whoever Agma is buffing, even himself, that thing's just not dying, okay? So that passive in itself is freaking huge. He gets a 1% bonus on recovery. He reflects percent damage that he takes in, and this dude at 25,000 health, 178 defense, this man is a tank with a taunt that defense increases by 50% for 3 seconds. So on top of taunting, on top of giving himself defensive passives, on top of having a very strong defense when you factor in shields, this man then goes ahead and goes, okay, let's add more. This is like stone plate level materials when it comes to League of Legends. I reference League a lot when it comes to statistics. That's like the game that I know the most. I'm just straight ass at it, but I love it. This dude gets super big once he starts taunting someone. His DPS is a little shaky, but because he's such a meat shield that forces people to attack him and then reflects that damage back to them, you'd actually be surprised at how much damage that Agma can push out. And when it comes to doing arena, you just go stand in the center and pick up things and make the rest of your team super strong. It's going to take them like at least 4 hours to kill this freaking tank. Now, last but not least, when you do get Ogma all the way up to where you can get his special ability, he gives members with less defense than him an additional 15%. That's actually not the best skill for him if you're pairing him in rainbow situations. It's because if you're putting him in rainbow, you're probably using him in a lot of ways to make your Marina and your Craig ridiculously OP, and both of those can actually have more defense. So this is mainly giving an extra 15% to your backline, which isn't bad. I mean, that's good, but it's not bad. But the rest of his kit is what you're there for, which is actually a good thing, because as you're scaling up your Ogma, you're just getting little bonuses here and there. You're not like sitting around and waiting for that main thing to kick into gear like you do with like Bari, for example. To me, Ogma is the top of this class, and then the second pick will actually surprise you, in my opinion. It's our girl Grimmery. Now, the reason why I say Grimmery is at the top is because she does not have an exclusive weapon at all. So what you see is what you get, what you factor in is what you factor in, right? She has a fairly strong attack percentage. She has a fairly strong crit hit chance right out the gate. She's not the tankiest of units, but her tank stats allow her to be a bit flexible. She gives your team a skill attack plus 72%. That is an insane multiplier, okay? Everything else in this class doesn't even get close to it. A lot of people like to run Arabella for her passive. No, this blows it out of the water, okay? 72% skill attack, that's Bari. That's Bari in a nutshell. And then on top of being an insane DPS user, she goes on and does some of the best utility you've seen in this game. Her normal attack decreases the enemy's defense by 20% for 5 seconds. Super strong. Her chain skill reduces their attack by 30% for 10 seconds. Amazing again. And then when you factor in her special ability, when she's attacking someone repeatedly and they have that attack percentage down, she does an additional 30% attack to them. So she's shredding them. She's basically taking about 50% of their core statistics and throwing it out the water. She's taking 20% of their defense and poof, 30% of their attack and poof. I mean, this chick does it all. And she does insane amounts of damage. Okay, I won't say insane. She does a very good amount of damage. She's not at the top end of this class. She's not at the bottom end of the DPS class. She's probably like, when it comes to just looking at DPS as a whole, she's probably in like the top 40% of DPS, which, I mean, that's respectable. But DPS generally don't come with this level of utility, guys. And then you just factor in 72%. Like these two skills right here, you generally see on your supportive class, or your supportive character within the class. And Grimmery, you don't want to factor her as a support. She hits like a freaking truck. And then you factor in this utility. She's really strong. You take this 72% and you drop it on some of your other characters like your Lupinas and your Arabellas, and they're hitting like it's nothing. Speaking of Lupina, Lupina is my number 3. And the only reason that Lupina does not edge out Grimmery is because she is so freakishly dependent on her exclusive weapon, guys. Her exclusive weapon goes and takes her DPS and jumps it up to an insane level. So the reasons why you like Lupina so much is because of her crit hit percentage. She can jump it up to 27% if you invest in her, and she gives herself an additional 8% attack on an enemy kill. Very strong. Her unique ability though is that even though she is a ranged user, she does melee damage. And when you have that exclusive, she is taking up so much of the board, and her wolves are constantly chaining out and doing so much damage. You can just watch the enemy disappear in AoE fashion, okay? And then when she uses her chain skill, it's a 425% multiplier, and her base attack scales all the way up to 724, guys. A lot of people like to think of her as the warrior type class because she has she's a melee damage user with decent statistics, but in all reality, she is a hardcore defensive, she is a hardcore DPS. Her Amarok has an insanely good attack ratio. It increases the hit rate again at 10%, so you're getting a base of 37% crit out of this character, and you can then go even higher through your secondary accessories. So she's going to be critting close to 50% of the time when you build her correctly. Her skill damage is plus 16%. Her weapon skill damage, our regen, is 16%. And guys, you can get additional 15% out of her for defense and 10% of attack if you invest in her overly with an HP percentage of 18%. You put her out there with Agma, and she's pretty hard to take down, and she just does so much damage, guys. I am a really big fan of Lupina. I think that she is a top 3 DPS in the class, or DPS in the game when you flesh her out, but do not sleep on Lupina. Now, 4th is probably the one everybody's sitting around and waiting for. Where's Arabella? Where's Arabella? Yes, this is a freakishly good DPS user, guys. Her exclusive weapon takes it to another degree, increasing her DPS by 50%. Oh, guys. That's just all she is she is a grenade throwing DPS machine. She can wipe out the enemy team incredibly quickly. She's also pretty fragile. She's also pretty limited in her rainbow abilities, with her party passive being a dark attack percentage, skill attack plus 10%. Generally, if you're going to be running Arabella, you want to be the one using her abilities. But I think that she probably runs best as a secondary support. With if your Lupina has Embark, Lupina will push out more damage than her if you are using the Lupina effectively. So I think at the end of the day, I think since Arabella was so strong at the beginning of this game's meta that people don't stop to think about where she stands now, and I don't think she stands where you think she does nowadays. I honestly could go without Arabella, rolling Arabella. That would have been fine with me. She's not. If I could trade her in for a Eugene or if I could trade her in for Eugene or Viz, I would do it in a heartbeat, but I don't have that option. All right, guys, the next one that we're going to look at is Karina. These last 3 that we have are actually kind of hard to separate in terms of which one I like more. I think that the bottom is the clear bottom, but it's not even because they're a bad unit. Dark as a whole is probably the best class in terms of every unit being so viable. So here we have Karina. Karina is your dark healer. When you get Karina's exclusive weapon, she can push out a very strong amount of both DPS and healing. She is not your Aoba. She is not your Favi when it comes to healing. She is a very consistent healer, and you could honestly think of running her as a second healer because her damage scales so well. The issues that take her back, though, is her passives on 3% HP recovery on enemy kill and a dark attack plus 30%. She doesn't bring anything to rainbow comps, so essentially if you are using her in rainbow comps, all she is a heal bot, and she could be a better heal bot, but healing is such a rarity in this game, and she does it pretty effectively, that it's still very viable. It's still a very good, she's still a very good unit to have. It's pretty hard to go into dark comps without really thinking at least for 30 seconds about putting Karina in. And so with the remaining 3, I think that's what separates her, is that when you're thinking mono element, when you're thinking rainbows, she comes into the conversations, whereas the last 2, they don't really jump off the chart in that capacity despite being incredibly strong. So with that said, the next one up is Use. Use is a crowd favorite here, guys, and she brings a lot to the party. In all honesty, she gives you a party buff of 36%. Her attack isn't that high, but she has a fair amount of base defense and an okay amount of base HP. So she's kind of like a hybrid in between. She's kind of like your warrior type. You're not going to get a ton of statistics out of her. You're not going to really even be able to keep her alive too long, but while she is alive, she's going to do a ton of work. The plus 36% party HP buff is very strong. Every time she attacks an enemy, and she attacks in a cone, so she can actually hit multiple with her auto attacks, the enemy's attack is reduced by 20% for 3 seconds. So that is very strong utility out of your warrior class. And then her chain skill is what really sets her up for mono element usage. Is once you do that, the other team has reduced dark type resistances by 30%, and if you don't know, the type resistances are probably the strongest multipliers in the game. So if you're reducing their resistances to dark element, you are going to be pumping in a lot more damage. So that is incredibly strong in mono element teams. And then her special ability down here, for each hit on enemies afflicted with attack decreased effect, so basically the second auto attack, restore HP by 10% of the damage given. That moves her into the berserker category, guys. She's a very strong unit. I think I do prioritize her in mono dark elements for her chain skill, for her base party buff. But overall, for a 2-star, she's a very strong unit. You're not going to be running her into rainbow comps very often, but when you factor in her exclusive weapon, and it takes the attack percentage from 20 to 30% for 8 seconds, increasing that level, she can honestly be a very strong frontline utility for you, and she can do a pretty considerable amount of DPS. You pair her with Lupina, and she's getting an additional 15% chance here from her weapon. So that's pushing just those 2 weapons alone into the 40, like at what, 42, 43%, with very strong DPS statistic baked into this kit. She's going to be doing a lot for you guys. When you're pairing her with Lupina, her crit ability gets all the way up to 50%. So she is pushing out crits like very, very consistently. If she had more defensive statistics to her, she would be very strong. You can kind of already tell where I'm going with my mono element suggestions to you guys. And we will see the last unit here in Shapiro. Shapiro is a warrior class. She is also a 2-handed sword user. She is a very interesting unit, offering 46% melee attack, which is pretty strong when paired with Lupina as well, guys, because remember, Lupina does melee percentage, gives you crit chance, and she's very, very strong. She leaps into the air and inflicts 400 DPS to the target, guys. That is really, that's one of the highest multipliers in the game, 400%. I can't think of offhand too many people that actually do more than 400%. And when she hits an enemy, her attack increases by 30% for 6 seconds. So Shapiro is going to be the warrior type that is really just out there doing the deeps. She herself doesn't have much sustain in her kit, so she is kind of like that one-way abuser. She cannot do much in terms of giving your party utility. She is just there to be a stat stick that hits their face in. She gets a 10% additional crit chance in her base, so when pairing her with Lupina, she's up to 37%. Can you imagine a 37% crit with an additional 30% attack on 639 and a really strong 2-handed sword? She hits very hard. So guys, that'll do it for the dark tier list. Overall, these units are the strongest in the game from top to bottom for any element. And now let's think about our mono element team composition. So guys, when I think about mono element dark, this is the first thing that comes to mind. Please ignore the leveling. Please ignore the equips on these users. I am not a dark user. On this account, I do know very much about the dark class. I am working on Agma now. Once I finish up getting my Marina to maxed out, I will be shifting over to dark units. So pardon that a little aspect there. But guys, this class, or this setup here, may be a little bit surprising to you. Actually, now that I'm here, let me go ahead and equip his yeah, we just got this yesterday, so we haven't leveled it up or anything yet, but I'm pretty excited about Agma now. So this is what I think of. You'll notice a distinct lack of healing. This is very much of we will push it into down your throats very quickly. You have Use and Agma in the front line with Lupina doing melee damage. Both Use and Grimmery bring in a lot of utility in terms of reducing their ability to attack you. They're also shredding their defense through Grimmery. You pair that with the crit percentage of Lupina and Agma being at the front, tanking everything up. Agma applying that defensive bonus across the team here makes Use that much stronger, and then Use taking her party HP buff and then extending it back the other way. Your entire team is getting flat statistics that outweigh any of the benefits that I can think of putting someone like Karina into this kit. I think if you're putting Karina into this team comp, it's not a bad idea instead of Use, but I think you're losing a lot of your raw statistics, and I think it just might likely mean that you do not have these units itemized and taken to the right to the peak of their potential to really flesh out what can be brought, or flesh out the damage that they can do. So if you are earlier in the game, replacing one of these units with Karina would be the next step that I go. And if you want to go pure DPS, guys, you can remove Use for Arabella. You can take out Use and put in Arabella. You can also replace Lupina with Arabella in a composition like this, and if you need to replace Agma, you would come in and you would put Shapiro in place of this. You would probably want to run Shapiro and Use though as your front line here. Lupina overall feels like she's pretty mandatory in mono element builds in terms of like the top end of this class, whereas I feel like you could get away without using Agma. I feel like you could get away without using Grimmery if you wanted to. There's really not a reason not to. You get her for free. She does so much over the course of the game, guys. And if you don't have any of them, running Karina into this is also a very viable strategy. Karina is like the very good glue if you don't feel comfortable with what you have out there. Putting Karina in is always a solid option. If say this is your base dark comp, you have them all leveled up and you wanted to replace someone out first, I think Shapiro is likely going to be the first, because even if you were to put Arabella into this composition, you can use and Grimmery effectively enough with their statistics to let Arabella tee off on them. And that to me is like the base of the dark class. You kind of just like take out pieces and put pieces in terms of mono element to just slightly scale it up. But even the worst variation of teams, which is what you see on the screen right now, this is a very, very, very strong team that can do just about all the content in the game for you. So even though I'm saying this is the worst team, in all honesty, if you were to focus on this alone, you would still be incredibly strong. That is how good the dark element is. Now, the top end of this class is still, in my opinion, beat out by the earth element. But I think, and maybe even the fire elements now that Akayuki's weapon is out. But I think that overall, dark is the best element in the game, guys. Now, if we're looking at units to throw into rainbow comps, you're looking at Agma, you're looking at Lupina, you're looking at Grimmery, and you're looking at Use. Those four are things that extend outside the rainbow class into rainbow classes very well. Of those, I think you would see the most utility out of Agma for sure. Agma pairs so well into rainbow compositions. Next, I would actually say is Use. Use can be very useful in rainbow comps. She does take a little bit more brain power to kind of kit around. And then last, I would say is Grimmery. Grimmery is our next, I would say is Grimmery. Grimmery can be useful for that utility. It can bring a lot of base statistics to the team comp. Getting that additional party kit in there, party skill, is very, very useful to just about any rainbow comp. And lastly, I would say Lupina. Why would I say Lupina is last? Really just because if you're looking at the totality of the game, you are using her almost exclusively for that crit buff. She would be a really good secondary DPS, but using her as a primary would actually be kind of weird, because if she's your primary DPS in a team with like, that probably means you're using 3 frontliners or 2 frontliners and a healer, and you're over indexing on the melee attack damage at that point, so it's pretty easy to be countered. But if you're gonna pair her with someone like Bari and get that crit out, that just get an insane amount of crit onto Bari, I mean, you were doing work. If you were to do a rainbow comp of something like Agma, Marina, Lupina, and Bari, that is the I'm gonna hit you like a truck, I'm gonna kamehameha you into oblivion. Really, really strong rainbow. I think when you're looking at the best Coliseum teams, you will see a lot of Agma being run. You will see a lot of Lupina being run. You will maybe even see a lot of Grimmery being run, guys. Arabella is very mixed. People really like to use Arabella with Hitake, with Lupina, and really stack up on that crit and ram Arabella down people's throats. I find Arabella to be the most niche of the units, and that isn't to say that she's a bad unit, guys. I just think that she takes a little bit harder than the rest of these dark units to kit around, to plan around, and for that reason she slides back in the tier list as we saw earlier. But again, I feel like I'm doing a disservice to how strong Arabella and how strong Shapiro are. Don't let it be taken away that way. Both of them are incredibly strong, guys. There is just so much utility. There is just so much team strength in this element that it is hard to kit around. So guys, that'll do it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you somehow made it all the way here, be sure to leave a like. Be sure to leave that subscription. Let me know what you want to see next, and I'll get on it, guys. Take care. Bye.